Hi guys, welcome back to Kirsty's Book Corner. I'm your host, Kirsty Mason. And before I get on to the next chapter in Inkheart, I want to explain something to you. This is a Guns N' Roses shirt, and the other day I'm like, what? I'm like, and I know they have holes in them, but I finally figured out why it has holes in it. It's because this is like the holes like from a bullet hole from a gun, so it's guns and roses. So that, I was really amazed at how I figured that out just by looking at the holes in my shirt. And I just thought you might want to know that tidbit of information about my shirt. I thought it was really cool. I got this from Forever 21 before it left the mall. Anyway, chapter 9 of Inkheart. So, chapter 9, A Poor Exchange. Maggie didn't sleep in her own bed that night. As soon as Eleanor's footstep had died away, she ran to Mo's room. He hadn't unpacked yet, and his bag stood open beside the bed. Only his books were on the bedside table, and a partly eaten chocolate bar. Mo loved chocolate. Even the mustiest old chocolate Santa Claus wasn't safe from him. Maggie broke a square off the bar and put it in her mouth, but it tasted of nothing but sadness. Mo's quilt was cold when she crept under it, and the pillow didn't yet smell of him either, only a laundry detergent. Maggie put her hand under the pillow. Yes, there it was. Not a book, a photograph. Maggie drew it out. It was a picture of her mother. Mo always kept it under his pillow. When she was little, she believed that Mo had simply invented a mother for her one day because he thought she'd have liked to have one. He told wonderful stories about her. Did I like her? Maggie always asked. Yes, very much. Where is she? She had to go away when you were just 3. Why? She's just had to go away. A long way away. Yes, a very long way. Is she dead? No, I'm sure she isn't. Maggie was used to the strange answers Mo gave her to many of her questions. By the time she was 10, she no longer believed in a mother made up by Mo. She believed in one who had simply gone away. These things happened, and as long as Mo was there, she hadn't particularly missed having a mother. But now he was gone, and she was alone with Eleanor, and Eleanor's pebble eyes. She took Mo's sweater out of his bag and buried her face in it. It's the book's fault, she kept thinking. It's all the book's fault. Why didn't he give it to Dustfinger? Sometimes when you're so sad you don't know what to do. It helps to be angry. But then the tears came back again, all at the same, and Maggie fell asleep with a salty taste of them on her lips. When she woke up all of a sudden, her heart pounding and her hair damp with sweat, it all came back to her. The men, Mo's voice, the empty road. I'll go and look for him, thought Maggie. Yes, that's what I'll do. Outside the sky was just turning red. Not long now, and the sun would rise. It would be better if she was gone before it got really light. Mo's jacket was hanging over the chair under the window, as if he only just taken it off. Maggie took his wallet out of it. She needed the money. Then she crept back to her room to pack a few things. Only the essentials, a change of clothes and a photograph of herself and Mo, so that she could ask people if they'd seen him. Of course, she couldn't take her book box. She thought of hiding it under the bed, but instead she decided to write Eleanor a note. Dear Eleanor, she wrote, although she didn't really think that was the correct way to address an aunt. I have to go and look for my father, she went on. Don't worry about me. Well, Eleanor wasn't likely to do that anyway. And please don't tell the police I have gone, or they'll be sure to bring me back. My favorite books are in my box. I'm afraid I can't take them with me. Please look after them. I'll come and get them as soon as I have found my father. Thank you, Maggie. P.S. I know exactly how many books there are in the book. She crossed out the last sentence. It could only annoy Eleanor, and who knew what she might do with the books then? Sell them, probably. After all, Mo had given them all particularly nice bindings. None of them was bound in leather, because Maggie didn't like to think of a calf or a pig losing its skin for her books. Luckily, Mo understood how she felt. Many hundreds of years ago, he had once told Maggie people made bindings for particularly valuable books. From the skin of unborn calves, Cauteria Virginia nominata, a pretty name for a terrible thing. And those books, Mo had told her, were full of most wonderful words about love and kindness and mercy. While Maggie was packing her bag, she did her best not to think, because if she did, she knew she would have to ask herself where she was going to search for Mo. She kept pushing the thought away, but all the same her hands slowed down, and at least she was standing beside her packed bag, no longer able to ignore the cruel little voice inside her. Well then, where are you going to look, Maggie? It whispered. Are you going to turn left or right when you reach the road? You don't even know that. How far do you think you'll get before the police pick you up? A 12-year-old girl carrying a bag, with a wild story about a father who disappeared, and no mother they can take care of back to. Maggie put her hands over her ears, but what use was that when the voice was inside her head? She stood like that for quite a long time. Then she shook her head until the voice stopped and dragged her. Voice stopped and dragged her bag out into the corridor. It was heavy, much too heavy. Maggie opened it again and put almost everything back in her room. She kept only a sweater, a book, the photo, and Mo's wallet. Now she could carry the bag as far as she had to. She slipped quietly downstairs with the bag in one hand and the note for Eleanor in the other. The morning sunlight was already fluttering through the cracks of the shutters, but it was as silent in the big house as even the books on the shelves were sleeping. Only the sound of quiet snoring came through Eleanor's bedroom door. Maggie really meant to push the note under the door, but it wouldn't fit. She hesitated for a moment, and then pressed the door handle down. It was light in Eleanor's bedroom, even though the shutters were closed. The bedside lamp was switched on, so obviously Eleanor had gone to sleep while she was reading. She was lying on her back with her mouth slightly opened, snoring at a plastered angel on the ceiling above her, and she was clutching a book to her chest. Maggie recognized it at once. She was beside the bed in the instant. Where did you get that? She shouted, tugging the book out of Eleanor's arms, which were heavily with sleep. That's my father's. Eleanor woke up as suddenly as if Maggie had poured cold water over her face. You stole it, cried Maggie, beside herself with rage. And you brought those men here. Yes, that's what happened. You and that Capricorn are in this together. You've had my father taken away, and who knows what you did with poor Dustfinger. You wanted that book from the start. I saw the way you looked at it, like something alive. It's probably worth $1 million, or $2 million, or $3 million. Eleanor was sitting up in bed, staring at the flowers on her nightdress, and not saying a word. She didn't move until Maggie was struggling to get her breath back. Finished? She asked. Or are you planning to stand there, yelling your head off until you drop dead? Her voice sounded as brusque as usual, but it had another note in it. 2. a touch of guilt. "I'm going to tell the police," cried Maggie. "I'll tell them you stole the book, and they ought to ask you where my father is. I saved you, and this book." Eleanor swung her legs out of the bed, went over to the window, and opened the shutters. "Oh, yes, and what about Mo?" Maggie's voice was rising again. "What's going to happen when they realize he gave them the wrong book? It's all your fault if they hurt him. Dustfinger said Capricorn will kill him if he didn't hand over the book. He'll kill him." Eleanor put her head out of the window and took a deep breath. Then she turned around again. "What nonsense!" she said angrily. "You think far too much of what that matchstick eater says, and you're obviously read too many bad adventure stories. Kill your father? Heavens above! He's not a secret agent or anything dangerous like that. He restores old books. Is not exactly a life-threatening profession. I just wanted to take a look at the book in its piece. That's the only reason I swapped it. How could I guess those villains would come here in the middle of the night to take your father away along with their precious book? All he told me was that some crazy collector had been badgering him for that book for years. How was I to know this collector wouldn't shrink from behind breaking and entering, not to mention kidnapping? Even I wouldn't think up an idea like that. Well, maybe for just one or two books in the world I might, but that's what Dustfinger said. He said Capricorn would kill him." Maggie was clutching the book tightly, as if that were the only way of preventing yet more misfortune from creeping out of it. It was as if she suddenly remembered Dustfinger's voice again. "And the little creatures screeching and struggling," she whispered, "would be as sweet as honey to him." Who are you talking about now?" Eleanor perched on the edge of the bed and made Maggie sit down beside her. "You'd better tell me everything you know about this business. Begin at the beginning." Maggie opened the book and leafed through the pages until she found the big N with animal that looked like Gwen sitting on it. "Maggie, I'm talking to you." Eleanor shook her roughly by the shoulders. "Who were you talking about just now?" "Capricorn." Maggie just whispered the name. Danger seemed to cling to it, to every single letter of it. "Capricorn. Go on. I've heard you mention that name a couple of times before. But who, for goodness sake, is this Capricorn?" Maggie closed the book, stroked the bindings, and looked at it from all sides. "It doesn't give the title on the cover," she murmured. "No, not on the cover or side." Eleanor rose and went to her closet. There are a good many books where you can't find the title right away. After all, it's a relatively modern habit to put it on the cover. When books were still bound so that the spines curved inward like this, the title might be on the side, if anywhere, but in most cases you found it outside, only when you opened the book. It wasn't until bookbinders learned to make rough, rounded spines that the title moved to the cover of the book. "Yes, I know," said Maggie impatiently, "but this isn't an old book. I know what old books look like." Eleanor looked at her ironically. "Oh, I apologize. I was forgetting you're a real little expert. But you're right. Yes, this book isn't very old. It was published almost exactly 38 years ago." Ridiculously young for a book. She disappeared behind her open closet door. "But of course it was the title of that same. It's called Inkheart, like the book." "I suspect your father intentionally bound it so that no one could identify it just from looking at the cover. You don't even find the title on the first page, and when you look carefully you see that he's removed the title page." Eleanor's nightdress landed on the carpet, and Maggie saw a pair of tights being put on over her bare legs. We have to go to the police again, said Maggie. What for? Eleanor threw a sweater over the closet door. What are you going to tell them? Didn't you notice the way those two policemen looked at us last night? Eleanor intimidated them. Oh yes, what was that again? Signora Loredan. Someone broke into your house after you've been kind enough to switch off the burglar alarm, and then this amazing cunning burglar stole just one book. And there I go sneezing again. Talk about sneezing in the middle of a video. And then this amazing cunning burglar stole just one book. Although there are books worth millions in your library, and they took this girl's father away after he'd offered to go with them in any case. Yes, very interesting. And it seems that these men were looking for a man called Capricorn. Doesn't that mean goat or something? Yes, it does. Heavens above, child. Eleanor emerged from behind the closet door. She was wearing an unattractive check skirt and a caramel-colored sweater that made her look as pale as dough. Everyone living around this lake thinks I'm crazy. And if you go back to the police with this story, then the news that Eleanor Loredan has finally flipped with all over the place. Which just goes to show that's a passion for books and extremely unhealthy. You dress like an old granny, said Maggie. Eleanor looked down at herself. Thank you very much, she said, but comments on my appearance are uncalled for anyway. I could be your granny, with a little stretch of the imagination. Have you ever been married? No, why would I want to? And could you now kindly stop making personal remarks? Hasn't your father ever taught you that it's bad manners? Maggie did not reply. She wasn't sure herself while she had asked the question. This book is very valuable, isn't it? She asked. What, Inkheart? Eleanor took it from Maggie's hand, stroked the binding, and then gave it back. I think so, although you won't find a single copy in any of the catalogs, or a list of valuable books. But I'm sure that many collectors would offer your father a great deal of money if word got out around that he has what may be the only copy. Actually, I found out quite a lot about it, and I believe it's not just a real book, but a good one too. I can't give an opinion on that. I scarcely made a dozen pages last night. When the first fairy appeared, I fell asleep. I never was particularly keen on stories full of fairies and dwarfs and all that. Eleanor went around behind the closet door again, obviously to look at herself in the mirror. Maggie commented on her clothes. Some seemed to be bothered her after all. Yes, I think it is very valuable, she repeated thoughtfully, although it's almost forgotten now. Hardly anyone seems to remember what it's about. Hardly anyone seems to have read it. You can't even find it in the libraries, but now and then these strange stories about it do crop up. They say it's been forgotten only because of all the copies that still exist were stolen. I expect that's nonsense. Although it's not just plants and animals that die out. So do books, quite often. I'm sorry to say, I'm sure you could fill 100 houses like this one to roofs with all the books that have disappeared forever. Eleanor closed the closet door again and pinned up her hair with clumsy fingers. As far as I know, the author still alive, but obviously he's never done anything about getting his books reprinted, which strikes me as odd. I mean, you write a story so that people will read it, don't you? Well, perhaps he doesn't like his own story, anymore, or perhaps it's just sold so badly that no publisher was willing to bring it out again. Oh, would I know? How would I know? All the same, I don't think they stole it just because it's valuable, murmured Maggie. You don't? Eleanor laughed out loud. My word, you really are my father's daughter. Murmured could never imagine people doing something bad for money, because money has never meant so much to him. Do you have any idea what a book can be worth? Maggie looked at her crossly. Yes, I do, but I still don't think that's the reason. I do, and Sherlock Holmes would think so too. Have you ever read those books, by the way? Wonderful stuff, especially on rainy days. Eleanor slipped on her shoes. She had small feet, strangely small feet for such a sturdily built woman. Perhaps there's some kind of secret in it, murmured Maggie, thoughtfully creasing the close printed pages. You mean something like invisible messages written in lemon juice, or map hidden in one of the pictures showing where to find treasure? Eleanor sounded so sarcastic that Maggie felt like wringing her short neck. Why not? Maggie closed the book again and put it firmly under her arm. Why else would they take Mo, too? The book would have been enough. Eleanor shrugged her shoulders. Of course she couldn't admit she never thought of that. Maggie told herself scornfully. She always has to be right. Eleanor looked at Maggie as if she had guessed her thoughts. Listen, I'll tell you what. Why don't you read it? She said. You really must find something that you don't think belongs to in the story. A few extra words here, a couple of unnecessary letters there, and there's your secret message. The signpost pointed to the treasure. Who knows how long it will be before your father comes back? We'll have to do something to pass the time here. Before Maggie could answer that one, Eleanor bent to pick up a piece of paper lying on the carpet beside her bed. It was Maggie's goodbye note. She must have dropped it when she saw the book in Eleanor's arms. What on earth is this? Asked Eleanor, when she had read it, frowning. You are planning to go look for your father? Well, for heaven's sakes. You're even more foolish than I thought. Maggie pressed Inkheart close to her. Who else is going to look for him? She said. Her lips began to tremble, and there wasn't a thing she could do about it. Well then, we'll just have to go and look for him together, replied Eleanor, suddenly sounding annoyed. But first, let's give him a chance to come back. Do you think he'll be pleased to get back here only to find you've disappeared, gone looking for him in the big wide world? Maggie shook her head. Eleanor's carpet was swimming before her eyes. A tear ran down her nose. Okay, that's all settled then, groaned Eleanor, offering Maggie a cotton handkerchief. Blow your nose, and then we'll have breakfast. She wouldn't let Maggie go out of the house before she had eaten a roll and swallowed a glass of milk. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, she announced, buttering her own third slice of bread. And what's more, when your father gets back, I don't want you telling him I've been starving you, like the wicked stepmother in the fairy tale. You know. An answer sprung to the tip of Maggie's tongue, but she swallowed it along with the last of her roll and took the book outside. That's it for chapter 9. Here's our picture of a snake. Yuck. I'm assuming that represents Eleanor. I'm joking. So stay tuned for chapter 10. That will be tomorrow's chapter. Please comment, subscribe, comment, and like, and hit the notification bell after you subscribe to my channel to let you know when I upload another video. Remember to dare to dream, guys. Bye.